Well, happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Dr. Laurie Davis Show. I'm your host, Dr. Laurie Davis, and my partner over here, Dr. Ramin Modiri, because on Tuesdays we do business, finance, politics, and boy, fires even. So it's all very high on the profile right now. Good morning, Ramin.
Oh, very good morning to you and happy Tuesday. It's great to be back.
Happy Tuesday. Yes, for sure. Well, we've got a lot on the go today because, of course, we've had the election yesterday, two more wildfires this morning, the Santa Ana winds, and you're our California connection to keep us up to date. So, why don't we start with that? What's the latest update that you know about with regards to the weather and the fires? Let's go there first, just briefly, and then we'll go from there because then the big thing was the election yesterday and how people are reacting. I even read a post where Arnold Schwarzenegger has left the United States. Wow.
Mhm.
All right, over to you.
Yes, well, let's start the weather. We had, the Santa Ana wind obviously plays a big factor, and we've been fortunate that it had been calm for almost a week, so it was nice and it helped. Hopefully, a little bit the firefighters, but yesterday we got the warning. We did where I am. We did have some wind, and even last night you could feel it. But right now it's calm. It's actually a nice day, so hopefully it stays that way. I haven't gotten any more warnings. So as far as updates, it's fascinating, Dr. Laurie, that you're more on top of things being in Canada because you follow these things very carefully, watching. And actually, after our show, I'm talking to one of our friends who has a family member who has lost a
Oh,
property there. So we'll be talking. I didn't get a chance to talk to them before, but we'll see how they are doing, the family
mhm.
without the house. But things like based on the last things, um, they have quite done. But of course, the Santa Ana becomes a factor for new fires. Our hope is they're small and immediately they're contained. So, I mean, of course, Palisade is still not contained. So we're all praying that it will come to some kind of a conclusion. And yeah,
Mhm.
we might. Oh, the other thing is there's a good chance this Sunday we will have rain. The question
Oh,
is, there's a cold, again, wave of uh, uh, wind are coming, and hopefully that dampens the things, but not too much rain. So that will be helpful. But as of now, I think we have at least where I am about 35 to 40% chance of rain, but it will be cooler rain. So that should be hopefully helpful because otherwise we will have a mess. If there's a lot of rain,
oh yeah.
it's gonna be
Oh,
good, and so hopefully nature will be
wait.
with us.
Well, you know what's interesting, Ramin, is that when we watch the California weather, which we do every day, Alberta weather is similar. Like today, we have very high winds today.
Hmm.
Warmed up, but it's high winds. So when it's stormy in California, it's stormy here. I'm just saying. The weather is like, okay, I think it affects our weather, or we send you the bad weather or something.
Or
But
something
there
maybe
is
good
there is a
weather.
connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not temperature wise, mind you, but it's been chilly down there too. It's been chilly in certain areas, right? It's freezing,
Yes, I
especially
mean
on.
it's nice. We are gonna have a cold stream this week, a few
Yeah.
days, and then right now it's nice. But again, that range should be helpful if it's mild and it's not too much. So yeah.
How can you tell when a Canadian is walking down Rodeo Drive in January? How do you know it's Canadian?
Uh, no
They're
jacket.
wearing they're wearing shorts and flip flops,
Yeah, that's what I see.
and all the locals are bundled up in their
Yeah.
toques and their jackets, right? So, another big day yesterday, although we try to stay very neutral when it comes to political conversations, but we cannot ignore the fact that yesterday was Inauguration Day. The 47th President of the United States was inaugurated in for a second term. So I watched some of it. I didn't watch all of it, but I do have a question because one of the things that I observed was Donald Trump, Mr. President, was signing off on executive orders. And I'm wondering, to educate us in Canada, we think that, well, the Prime Minister doesn't sign off on anything unless it's gone through legislature. So have these things gone through Congress, the Senate? I'm not familiar. So maybe you could help us up here in the North to understand a little more about how executive orders happen, let's say, compared to bills or other things. Can you share that with us and educate us?
Sure. So again, I'm not a politician, but based on uh, my experience, obviously we have the three branches of the government. We have the legislative, and we have executive, and then we have judicial. And everything is supposed to be balancing. It's like, and uh, basically what executive order, and it also applies to pardoning, which you notice
Yes.
ex-President Biden, right before the day, right on the inauguration, right before the last minute that he was leaving, he did quite a few pardoning. So that's the power that the presidents have. And executive order is also, it's a power that they have. Now, Congress can nullify, if they have enough votes, any of those, but generally, once it's done, it will be implemented. So those orders are usually not to the extent that, you would think you will have 5 or 10, but he had almost 200. He had promised 100. But one of the most important thing was right before, for instance, give you one example, but President Biden, a couple of weeks ago, he used that his executive order about the offshore drilling, like California, but also one of the major ones that he did. It affected, this is the geopolitics of the world, was putting sanctions on the Russian oil companies and their tankers. So basically, they've been floating on these very inexpensively. The same thing like Iran for months. Actually, there are a lot of sanctions, so they usually sell at a huge discount to China, and China where it's getting their energy. With the sanctions, what has happened that the ports cannot accept those tankers. So they cannot go. So these tankers have been floating in Pacific Ocean. They go to Malaysia, and then from Malaysia they don't have any destination. So imagine there all this oil sitting in our oceans, whether it's the Russian or Iranian. So that was an executive order. And if you look at the charts, and some of our friends who are in the oil industry, they will see that oil prices really rocketed up in the last few weeks, especially from the beginning of the year. And the question is, wait a minute, here comes President Trump, who's very energy friendly, and he calls drill, baby, drill. You would think with that, well, we will have supplies, right? More supplies. The global economy has slowed down. So there's a demand problem around the globe. So, everything's supply and demand. So oil needs to have a healthy economy. People want to, fly around, and the factories. And well, we have a soft economy around the globe. US is an exception. And you would think with the more supply from the United States, things will go down. So that was one of the reasons. It goes back to, again, President Biden had that executive order, put that sanctions. Now, again, legislator can challenge that. But right now, everything he did, like for instance, the South border, for instance, he just locked it. When President Biden came into office 4 years ago, he opened the borders. So the presidents can undo or do whatever, the previous administration had done. So hopefully that's helpful. One of the major things, and I think it will be helpful for our Canadian friends, but also around the globe, what happened was they did not, with all those executive orders, you didn't hear about tariffs, which was very interesting because that's what he ran on. He was very gung ho. That the idea is it looks like he's approaching it very gradually and he wants to see the effects. It was, I mentioned, a few weeks ago when I had our show, I mentioned it's more of a negotiating tool rather than absolute tool. And that would absolutely affect, again, our northern neighbors, especially with the energy. Now, the idea is if those tariffs are gradual or based on merit, one of the things obviously is the border, right? Especially the southern border, that's a different story than our Canadian border. But if there's things work out, I think it will work out for both countries. And I tell you why. Number one, oil prices did drop this morning because of the energy, again, outlook. The other thing was, it was a big drop in dollar. Now, the dollar has been on fire for months, especially because of his election. The idea was when you have tariffs, what happens is, first of all, there's that fear of inflation, and inflation has higher interest rates. So the other part is if the other country is going to be, again, taxed, they want to park their money in US dollar because they know there's going to be strength and the dollar actually goes up. Since he didn't go to that extent, there was no executive order about tariffs, all of a sudden the dollar has dropped. And we look at Canadian dollar had a nice bounce, which incidentally for our audience, we call Canadian dollar. If you're a trader in Forex trading, you call them loonie, right? Because of the loon. So Canadian dollar is loonie. And then Swiss franc is called Swissy. The New Zealand dollar is called Kiwi, again, the bird on the currency. And British pound is called cable. And the reason is because in the 1890s and late 1900s, they would cable under the ocean. That's how the traders, when you want to do the trading your currencies, you will use that cable to get that message out. It was not telegram, it was actually cable. So that's why British pound is called cable. And then you have euro, and then you have Aussie dollar or Australian dollar. But Canadian dollar, euro, they've all had a bounce this morning because the dollar had gotten weak. The dollar hit 110, and that's a round number for our audience. Again, from investment point of view, markets respect round numbers. And once we hit that 110, the markets were telling us 3 or 4 days ago, there was a little sell-off that there will be a more mild and more neutral attitude toward tariffs. So it was interesting that Premier of the Prime Minister of Alberta, Daniel Smith, was in inauguration, but no Trudeau, no Prime Minister.
Oh, our premier.
Right, your Premier from Alberta was in the, and of course, one of the things is about this Keystone pipeline. As you know, that had been approved. It was going through, and then when President Biden came to office, because of the environmental issues for whatever reason, and there were quite few executive orders to change things from the really aggressive environmental protection side of things. But there is a good sign that Keystone, which was very important for Alberta, that could start rolling. Now, the problem with Alberta and Ontario is like the energy side, and we talk about Saskatchewan, and with all the minerals, and we have nickel, and it's one of the biggest providers of energy to the United States. The electricity, all of those, we United States uses a lot of that. So Canada, and I think the Premier was very aware of that and mentioned that she wants to make sure it's a two-sided things, because Canadians import a lot from United States as well. So they're the closest, really, when you look at around the world, they're probably the closest two economies, very interdependent. So I think that was good news, and I think the markets today, the markets are up. All the stock markets in the United States are up. Dollar is down. Interest rates is down. Gold is flat. And the idea is maybe tariff is not going to be as huge of an issue, at least in the short run, as it was meant to be. But again, it will be more of a negotiating tool and
Well,
gradual.
Introducing Veteran House Alliance International Monthly 50/50 Raffle. Purchase your ticket today, link on display, and have a chance to win cash and help a great platform supporting veterans.
well, I'm really glad to hear that, because I do not want to be paying $25 a pound for bananas and strawberries and blueberries and things that I know we can't grow here in the wintertime, but we are privileged to having them in the wintertime because we can import them from California, right? So keep the tariffs off the produce. I'm good.
Well, I think, also, again, when the premier also mentioned that they want to work with the border and the drugs issue and other things. So there is a lot of mutual agreements. So
Yes.
I think it's beneficial. It just, Trump is the big, obviously the wheel and deal guy, right? So if you read his book in 1980s, I remember as a young man, I read his book. I was it was a big seller, and so he does these things. Sometimes he just shoot out his mouth, I should say. He just comes out with things, because there is not one thing, whether you respect him, I mean, you like him or you don't, there's no filter. And he said that sometimes he thinks afterwards, but he comes out with ideas and then he backs it up or he doesn't. So hopefully this tariff, but my big, I think, biggest worry was not Canada. I think with Mexico, that was one of the executive order closing the border. And also, I was glad he mentioned that the drug cartel will be, a terrorist organization. So there's a lot of people who are, applauding that, but also gives him some extra power to actually go after the cartels. But I think he's more realistic. He knows, again, with Canada especially, we need each other. Mexico, that was a huge tool for him to, hey, listen, don't send, people who are not basically welcome here. But my big challenge for this year will be China. That's the thing we have to watch. So basically, we'll see what happens with that. That's going to be something that is not a short-term solution. So we'll see.
Well, I did hear where he may be sending all of those illegal immigrants to the Canadian border. I wonder what will happen there. I wonder if Danielle is going to welcome them with open arms. I don't know.
No, I don't. It's one of the things is negotiating in the mayor of New York, which is a sanctuary city. Now he's talking to Trump about all these sanctuary cities that are around the country. But, we have to be realistic also. And I think the media plays a little more of a exaggeration, or they like to create these dramas.
Oh, yes.
The problem is, I mean, I'm so glad he did mention he's going to go the number one. Remember, President Biden, I believe he processed about 1 million. There's about 1 million immigrants on deportation right now. The papers have been processed, but they have not been sent back. So that's the easy first step. The second is the criminals and the gang members and all the people that any community, whether you're in Canada or whether in Brazil, I mean, everyone would not welcome that. So that will be the second. I don't think the ICE, which is the immigration enforcement in the United States, they don't have the manpower to go. I mean, after people who working in a hotel, or they work in hospitality or farms, and they've been here for 10 years or 15, that's, if you've worked in any, you've gone to any motor vehicle department or post office, United States, things don't work that fast. So anything the government related. So I think it's not that mass deportation that it's supposed to be, in the sense that it's not going to be 10 million people leaving. It will take, but I think those two priorities are important. People who already been subject to deportation, and the criminals. I think that.
Right. Well, it's really wonderful to have your perspective on that, because of course you're there and we're here.
Mhm.
And like you said, we only get what the media chooses to announce or feed us. So we have to really, if we're really cautious and we take everything with a grain of salt,
Sure.
we don't have those overreactions or those knee-jerk reactions, because it's really about wait and see.
Correct.
And who's going to do what they say. The day that former President Biden was put into office, it was only the very next day that he closed down that Keystone project, and 1,000 Albertans lost their jobs that day.
Correct.
So that's how powerful this is, that someone in another country can actually impact our economy and make rules about what we can do and not do. And that hurt a lot of people. So I'm glad to see that Danielle showed up at the inaugural ball. And what did she have on? Was it attractive and beautiful?
I'm not. Yes,
didn't see
do not observe that. I'm a numbers guy. Sometimes I get.
And I see former Vice President Kamala Harris didn't go to the ball, I don't think. And she ended up being in California this morning. But short of getting out of that pantsuit, I'm not sure that she would be able to go to a ball. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Don't think I've seen her in a dress once. That's for you, Camilla, really. You're a fashion coordinator. So it's interesting because I notice all these little things. Most people maybe wouldn't even notice something like that, but I do. And so therefore, I'm entitled to my no filter opinion.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, really?
That, but former President Biden and Jill Biden, they flew to California yesterday for a little break, and Kamala has flown. And next few days, I think it's next week, President Trump will go to California. So
Friday.
Friday,
but
yeah.
I enjoyed watching the two couples, walking up the stairs together and having tea, and the shaking hands, and it's almost like the royal family, if you will, the hats and the coats and the formalities and all of that. So that that strive to be royalty is also evident, even though the United States did cut those ties, or so they think they did, back in 1776.
Yeah.
The War of Independence. But now you're, I don't know.
The traditions, no.
Right, those British
it's nice
traditions.
To do that. I mean, here, President Trump really went after former President Biden, just gave it to him, all the things that had gone wrong with the country, and then 30 minutes later, they're walking together, holding.
Yeah, having tea.
Like, okay,
well, right.
That's politics for you, right? So,
yeah.
One thing I have to mention is also, since you're talking about markets,
sure.
For our audience, I also. Because it was very interesting times, and again, geopolitically, we never had anything. Only had once. We had Grover Cleveland. We've had no presidents have been coming to terms with another president in between. So this was only second time.
Oh,
and
wow.
2 years ago and a year and a half ago, if you would have looked at even a year ago, there was no way President Trump would be president. I mean, all the things you hear, he probably would have been in jail with all the things that was going. And so there was this big resurrection and there's a lot of things have happened. So I, every year in January, I do for my members. We do have we look at the year ahead. I'm not a predictor, and don't like to make predictions. So
Oh,
I'll
come
go.
on, you're a psychic. Let's get over it.
Yeah, exactly. And there is, but we do like to get together, and well, I'll mention what is my outlook, like for outlook for
Yes.
2025. This year, I purposely delayed that because I thought inauguration and these executives played a much more influence on the politics of things and the markets. So rather than having it, we usually have it the second week of the January, we will have it on February 1st, which is on Saturday. And then for the first time, I've never done this before, but we will have it. It's going to be a webinar, and it's on Saturday morning it will not be a private. So anyone who is interested can attend our webinar to to share our outlook, what are my thoughts, and then we also have a private which I come up with my best investment ideas as far as where to invest for the next 11 months or a year.
So give me the date and time again, and I'll put it up on a
Absolutely.
banner for here.
So
Okay,
it will be February 1st, Saturday, and we'll have it at 10 a.m., but that's Pacific Coast time. So it will be 11 o'clock Mountain time, and it will be 1 o'clock East Coast time. So, but it's something that we are, I thought it will be timely to share rather than just have it so
February
first on Saturday.
February 1st.
Yes.
Saturday. I'm just taking time here because my screen went wonky on me here. Saturday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time.
Correct.
Okay. And how do we get to attend? How do we, if somebody...
So if anyone interested, so I will, still will be by invitation. So anyone interested, maybe they can contact you, or they have my email address.
Right.
There will be invitation with the link sent out to them. So we will have
I would be interested. I would be
so
interested.
Every year I do that. We look at global markets. We look at what happens to gold or commodity, but also stock markets. But we also look at, from the cycles point of view, presidential cycles. We look at seasonal. So we look at the whole thing to see what the markets tell us and what has happened in the past. So it's generally interesting. So, and every year I preview what I said the previous year. So that's also something we look at.
Well, let's just put that out there. So in order to attend, you just contact Ramin at his email.
You call you, and then we will send an invitation.
Okay, that sounds like fun. February 1st at 11 a.m.
Correct.
To hear the financial psychic of 2025.
I don't want to
give his predictions and talk about that would be fun. I'm writing it in my calendar, and I hope everybody out there is doing the same thing. So it's a free webinar on Saturday, February 1st. And there's how you get in touch with Dr. Ramin, or you can let me know, and I will also share with him to send you an invitation. That's awesome. Yeah. Excellent. We've got some people who need to go to that. There we go. So let's put it out there.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We welcome you to advertise and promote your goods and services, and/or brand your logo to 34 million subscribers on Canada Talks 167. Your investment will go towards our employment programs in the media industry for persons with disabilities and veterans.
So I think we get hopefully more answers, especially in the next few days with what's going on. Because, we are living in a very volatile world. And I don't mean, when we think about volatility, it doesn't have to be negative. It's just unpredictable world. And it's always it's welcome to have more sanity and at least the predictability, because the markets do not like that. One of the biggest things is not the bad or good. They just like to know what's going to happen. So basically, they need that stability. So the volatility creates opportunities in the short term, but also creates a lot of anxiety. So hopefully, we will have some clarity in the next few days. But the world is, yeah, it's pretty volatile world. As I mentioned, we will talk about China because I think that's going to be a big question. We talk about Taiwan, China, what's going to happen. Of course, TikTok, went blank for
Oh,
hours, the
yeah.
whole world stopped. But those are the little things, but they're big things. A lot of people follow that, and then
Yeah.
we'll see. Um, again,
And Mr. President Trump said, we will own half of TikTok. We want 50% ownership. United States of America and China. We'll work with you, but we want 50%.
right, and that's why I think one of our fellow Canadians, Kevin O'Reilly, he
Oh,
is
yeah.
with a group. They're after that. They are ready because they got the funds. They
Yeah.
are ready to buy TikTok. So
Yeah.
there's quite a few interests from the
Excellent.
private side. Yeah. So
Uh,
anyway, so yeah, that's one thing that we'll look at, and I think it will follow our conversation today. So it will be nice to
mhm,
have that opening and get to
mhm.
get a little more details. And
Yeah. Well, we need to put that out to our team and our clients and other people who know who you are and have a lot of faith and trust in what you have to say. You've earned that reputation with us, and so let's get that out there in a big way, because I believe there's a lot of people who would be interested in knowing that information. So let's get really working on that and make it a big event. I think that's amazing. Good.
oh,
Good on
great.
you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But the reason, because every year in December, January, a lot of these big investment companies, the magazine, everybody has their own predictions. They don't call it
Right.
forecast, but the predictions. And
Right.
for 30, I have some actually videos. I mean, on VHS actually recording that. You go back, you know what? They're entertaining, but there's not a lot of value. It's the tradition. They have to come out, and we'll discuss that. You will look at all their predictions and how accurate they were. So we want to make sure we go into the fundamentals, so you actually understand where it's coming from, rather than just giving you a number. But
Right.
nobody is really good at predicting things. It's just a guess. But hopefully, this will be more educational than just entertainment. So,
Well, your predictions are not based on flying pie in the sky.
and yeah, and
Your
there's no
predictions are based on
biases.
historical track records, patterns. This is what I've learned.
Correct. Very
Patterns,
good.
facts, uh, trends. You
Absolutely.
use all of that to
True.
biases. See, I am listening, and
You
I
are
do know
very good. Thank you, Laurie. Those are absolutely right. So
right?
that
It's not just based on, some, you know, pulling a number out of the sky and saying this is what it is. No, because you've done your homework. And so that's what I love about you, is the fact that, you do your research. Everything you do is based on history, patterns, facts, trends, and you're the man. So let's get as many people as we can out to that event on February 1st. I'm going to put it back up here because this is the first I've heard about it, which is okay. But February 1st on Saturday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. That would be 10 a.m. Pacific Time.
correct.
Our East Coast people, 2 hours, 1 o'clock your time. So you have lots of time in the morning to get lots of coffee under your belt. And then if you want to attend, you just let Ramin know, email him, because it's by invitation only, or you can email me as well, and we'll make sure you get that invitation. So I need to put that out to our team as well. Beautiful. All right. Anything else over there that you wanted to talk about today that we haven't
Yeah,
touched on
so I
yet?
thought, and that's also again takes us to what we will talk about in our webinar. It's always that New Year resolution. Of
Oh,
course,
yeah.
health is number one. Everybody has plans, and then it could be career, but it's always the health and money, right? So I'm gonna make sure my finances are in order. I'm gonna do this, and so usually again, health comes first. What we're gonna do with ourselves, and then finances. And one of the things people say, well, I'm going to invest in this and that. So you hear again a lot of pundits coming with their own list of things to invest. So one thing I wanted to share today, and again, our approach is more educational, so that's why we don't give tips, or it's not, because tips is a tips. But how you actually, if you hear something, you're watching TV, or somebody, a friend calls, oh, you got to invest in this stock, it's great. Well, you use it as a door being open for you, but how do you know it's a good investment? How do you value the stock? And I'm just going to share a few things in our short time that we have. So I'll just so at least open the door for you to basically understand what a financial analyst or stock analyst, uh, what do they do, and how do they approach things. So number one, when it comes to investing, there's two. There's we talk about in our classes a few things, but the two major ones are people look at the fundamental of the things about the company. They look at the macroeconomy, the whole economy as a whole. They look at the industry that investment is in, the stock is in. They look at what profits they're going to make. What is what is the balance sheet? That's called fundamental side. The other side is the technical. And when you think about technician, and you've been familiar with it, it's like the price charts. They look at the charts, and it's more of a psychology. It's about it's that supply and demand comes in the picture, and they say, well, at this price, there's a lot of buyers coming in. There might not be any other logic. It is what it is. But there are a lot of logic because of the fundamental side. So today, what I'm going to talk about, again, in our short time, is how do you value stocks from the fundamental side? Because that's the key, especially if you're buying something for a longer term. And I mean, I say longer term, used to be 10, 20 years. Nowadays, it's like 6 months to a year and more. So that's probably have changed because we are in such a mobile, again, we are in a TikTok world. So everything is so instantaneous. So I will share 3 different stock valuation model. So you can, again, decide, or you can look at all of those. But again, this is more of an education, but hopefully it opens the door for really for the future education so you can build on this. So the 3 ways you can actually look at a company and put a value on it. The simplest one, which makes a lot of sense a lot of times, and it's easy to understand, we call it as asset-based. And what that means is, what is their value based on the things that they own? So if I'm a real estate investor, I want to buy something, I look at, well, how much does it cost to build this house? I know the land is this value, and what does it cost? And that's called asset-based. In the stock, they look at their inventories, they look at their land, they look at all the machineries, so basically based on that, they say if this company went bankrupt today, which has happened, you look at in the past, there's like we've had Bed Bath and Beyond just recently, but like you had Sears. Sears owned a lot of land. So how much we know if there was a fire sale, and which means if things went the worst situation, or if there was a fire, and how much do I pay for this? That's what they call fire sale. And unfortunately, we are seeing that in Southern California right now, in LA, that there's going to be a lot of fire sales, because how many people are going to build that house back? How many people they had insurance? Are they going to walk away and just sell the land? So that's one of the ways you can look at analyzing a company. And if that company has a lot of assets and the price in today's market is lower than that, which we call those assets called book value. So we put a value on the books. And there's also this, if I sold that today, what will I get? Then a lot of investors walk in, especially they look at some of the calculations and they say, oh, well, I have this cash. And Warren Buffett is big on that because he's got tons of cash. He's got billions and billions of dollars. Us as investors, we usually don't have that. So we just look at the stock of the company and value it based on that. So asset model is the simplest to understand, but it's the most basic. So a lot of companies are not, especially in this trending world with the, you think about technology, we're talking about, obviously artificial intelligence, robotics. That's not the best way to value a lot of companies, but it is there. So sometimes what you will do with all the three that I'm going to talk about, you can combine those. So if you find a really good company, which has a good, again, has a good future, but also has a lot of assets, well, then you got the double win. So the second one is that a lot of people use, a lot of analysts, as a financial analyst, I look at, it's called discounting model. Remember, when you invest in a company, basically you're buying something for the profits or the cash it's going to produce for 10 years for the future. So you value that company based on what is the potential. If you think about a lot of technology companies, you look at the Amazons of the world or Teslas of the world, Apples of the world, it was not the valuation at that time that they were making a lot of profits, but their potential was tremendous. So you're paying for what amount of profits and earnings am I going to receive? So it could be based on the dividends. It could be based on cash flow. It could be based on earnings. So we discount those to today. So I say, well, this thing is going to produce this much for the next 10 years. And then I discount it based on the interest rates that is today's, whatever interest rate is, or the interest that we choose. And based on that, we value this company. I want to give you an example. For instance, for our real estate investors, they want to buy this rental property, right? So they look at, okay, I bought this rental property. How much rent or how much cash I'm going to get out of this? What profits am I going to make? Is it going to be after paying the property taxes, the insurance, the mortgage? So that's how they value the company or the property based on the cash flow that they receive, and it's discounted. So that's the second model.
The Disability Channel would like to thank our existing sponsors. We really appreciate the support and kindness from the BIAs across the GTA, Ontario, Canada, and our friends in the USA. We love making new friends. Thank you for supporting our existing employment programs.
And the third one, we call it multiple model. And that's based on comparison. So we look at, all right, this company has this earnings, the profits that it's making. And today, on this earnings, their price is a multiple of that earnings. We compare it for past 5 years. We compare it to the other companies in their industry and say, well, comparing to their earnings, this company is in a good shape or it's not. It's overvalued or undervalued. We look at based on their revenues. We say, well, I'm paying multiple of its revenue. So obviously, the lower the multiple, the more attractive it is. It could be the book value, which I mentioned about valuing the assets. And the other thing we look at is basically you can apply it again in real estate. You look at a lot of times our real estate markets, the probably buy is based on comparison. That's why it's good to have good neighbors that they upkeep their, their property. We like to have somebody who sells their property on a higher price because it brings your price up. In the financial crisis, on the other hand, when we see is that depreciation, and it brings the whole, again, the whole community down, because people have, we talked about fire sale, so that comparison is important. So in the stock market, we look at that multiple, we call it multiple model. So basically, again, it could be based on profits, based on cash flows, based on book value. So these are the three main valuation model. These are the things that I'm hoping I open a little door. So if somebody said, oh, Dr. Laurie, you got to buy this company. It's great. The price is awesome. And you say, well, why? Then they might not be able to answer. They come up with, oh, I heard, I was listening to this, and they say, well, they're going to come up with this $100 billion technology and all that. Well, you got to do your own due diligence. And as I mentioned, from the point of view of valuation, you can easily have access to all the three things that I mentioned. You can, again, one of our favorite websites are Finviz, which is a financial viz. It's like FINV as victory, IZ.com, finviz.com. It allows you to see, well, what is the book value or the value of this company based on the assets? What is basically their price to earning, the model? There's another one called Guru charts. It's that Guru Focus, which is GURUFOCUS. And that one, it looks at these discount models. They look at, oh, based on cash flow, this company is valued at this. So these are the two really good, fundamental, and free. You could have premium subscription if you wanted, but free. For our audience, just go, and believe it or not, what you learn in a matter of like just a couple of hours is a lot more than that a lot of, again, professionals that they share with you. Because one of the things we have, and we've watched some TV show, or we've watched like CNBC or Bloomberg or Fox Business, we have this expert bias. We think, well, they know, so I'm going to listen to them. Which there are times it's correct, but they're human beings. They have their own biases. They have their own valuation that they look at. So you want to maybe take that, opening door, and then based on that, do your own due diligence. As I mentioned, if you look at these three models, I think we'll be way ahead of many, many investors. And then the charts, which is the technical side, which will be another story, they allow you to find when is the good time to get in. So now, because you could find a really good stock, but it's not moving because nobody's buying it. So you can sit on it for 2 years. So you want to combine both. So technical analysis gives you the timing of it, especially when the big players come in, institutions come in, and then well, there is definitely a lot of interest. And it goes to that supply and demand. We call it order flow. You look at that. But anyway, in a nutshell, based on time, I just want to share that with you for today's little lesson, or what you want to call it. But I think you will hear again, beginning of the year, everybody wants to get that next NVIDIA of the world. Oh, I want to get that one and double my money. Well, they are ways you can actually look at the valuation. So,
Awesome.
anyway, I hope that was helpful. That was just
It is helpful. It is helpful, and I connected big time to the assets, because that's the one that we're mostly conditioned to. Real estate, something tangible. The potential, I can relate to that too. I had people invest in my company because of the potential.
Which is a big one. I mean, that is a big key.
Huge.
Right.
Huge.
It's the growth.
And yeah, totally. So I just want to put a plug in again for your free webinar on February the 1st at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. And it's by invitation only. So if you wish to attend, then please email Ramin at rmmodiri@aol.com, or you can email me and I'll make sure that you get an invitation as well. So I think we need to make that a plan, that we have as many people as possible to get out and hear the valuable information that are psychic. No.
Well, we'll talk about that actually.
We have to have fun, right? So we like to make finance fun because it can be very boring.
Yeah.
So we have you to help us with some predictions for 2025. And as I mentioned earlier, your stuff is based on knowledge, history, study, research, trends, the whole 9 yards. So that would be a very valuable event. So get your friends out, people who need to know what they're going to be doing in 2025 to get richer. And Kathy and Sylvia, who are here today, have both just signed up. So, okay, ladies, we've got you on the list. I have your names on the list here, and that'll be awesome. So we have about 5 minutes left. And if anybody has a question, or if there's anything else that you would like to share, Ramin, with our group, this is Tuesday and we do business. I appreciate hearing about the election and what's going on down there. We get bits and pieces. So I really did want to watch the ball to see what everybody was wearing. That would be it's kind of like a red carpet event, if you will. The only thing I saw was that young man, wrestler, boxer, Paul, what's his last name? Paul, with Mike Tyson on his shoulders in their tuxedos. In their tuxedos. This was how they went into the ballroom. So it was really kind of fun. They were recently in a match together. And so the announcers were joking about the fact it's a good thing that it's that young man with him on his shoulders, because anybody older wouldn't have worked. So, and then, he could have ended up with a broken hip or something, which would not have been good. Yeah. So there's just shenanigans going on around us everywhere, all kinds of shenanigans going on. So thank you so much, Ramin, for joining us today and being here with us on Tuesday. We really appreciate you. And you always have powerful things to share and words of wisdom. And we try to throw a little fun in the middle of it there to keep everybody excited. And once again, Ramin will be doing a free webinar on February the 1st, which is a Saturday. So nobody's working. Everybody's home in their jammies. And if you want an invitation, let us know. And we have 2 people coming already, Ramin, before we off the show today. Actually 3, because I'll be there. So there'll be 3 of us there at least for you to talk with. And you have your own guests as well. So it'll be a great event. So thank you. And we'll put that out there on our Facebook pages and so on. I'll do a flip on that on my Facebook page as well. All right. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Any last words, Ramin, before we go? Words of encouragement to anybody?
Yes, I think it was an important day yesterday. Again, whether people like Trump, whether they don't like Trump, what it is, word that I give to our audience is, number one, the market, since we talk about investments, the markets do not care about our feelings. They don't care if I like Trump or if I hate Trump. So our investment decisions should not be based on our feelings and emotions. It should be based on following the markets, what the markets are telling us, because they are much, much bigger than us. And my goal is, again, connecting those dots, right? So how the dollar affects the markets, how the gold behaving, how's the crude oil behaving, and that tells us about geopolitics of things. And I would leave it at that this next few weeks are crucial. What is happening in the Middle East, what is going to happen with Russia and Ukraine, all these talks, or even, you think about one of the other things he's talked about, like Panama, for instance, how far he will take things. But as I mentioned, and then we will talk about that in our webinar, I think I leave it at this, that China is the big question mark for me. And that's from the global point of view. I think that's what we like to have more clarity, which is that's going to affect a lot of things. But other than that, I think it was an important day yesterday as far as just the anticipation of the whole world was waiting to see what's going to happen. And it will be interesting. Definitely not boring. I can guarantee it won't be a boring
Oh,
year.
no. Oh, no. No. All right. Well, we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same station, the Dr. Laurie Davis Show here on the Disability Channel. And just a big shout out to the Disability Channel today because they're preparing and getting geared up to attend the Invictus Games in Whistler, BC, and also the Super Bowl. So we've got lots going on here at the Disability Channel. And thank you very much for the platform that we get to enjoy being associated with them. So bye for now.
Yes.
Talk to you later and see you tomorrow.
Goodbye. Bye.
To the north I travel, step by step, that road unravels, right then left, and I'm finally on my own. Speaking tongues I babble, words unravel, despite my thoughts being full of rebel. I'm finally on my own. Still my words I gather, collect what matters, hope it works and my brain won't scatter. As I drove I thought that I had her, friends and times where I was flattered. I'm finally on my own. Twists and turns, the road kept going sideways, crossing the lines of 1,000 highways.